I'd like to welcome in now aviation safety and NAS expert Philip Mann. Philip, great to see you. I want to start with Newark and this new information that those controllers lost radar contact for up to 90 seconds. So luckily, we are not talking about any resulting tragedies. But what is your reaction first to the loss of contact for 90 seconds, and then second to the fact that many of those controllers are now taking this 45-day paid trauma leave as a result?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is it was surprising to me that they lost total contact for that long, because there are fallback systems in place. So it tells me that there was something super critical at the Philadelphia TRACON. That's the radar facility that's in charge of this airport. But it's also something that only seems to have affected the Newark airport. Now, for folks who may not know, Newark up until July of last year was part of another. It was run by another place, another TRACON in Long Island in New York Center, and it was moved over. The control of Newark was moved over to Philadelphia to kind of alleviate the workload in Newark. So it tells me there was some single point of failure, but there are policies and processes, and there are ways that had the outage been longer, they could have reverted the control back over to New York, back over to Long Island Center, or back over to some of the other infrastructure, because it is very redundant. There are lots of layers to the air traffic infrastructure. Now, I'm interested in the air traffic controllers taking that trauma leave, because it's a little surprising to me that it's been reported a lot that folks just walked off the job, where effectively what they did was they took the same sort of shock and reaction kind of time, a little bit of cool down time, if you will, that they give to law enforcement officers after a shooting or something like that. There's a traumatic event happened on the job. It really shook them up, and this is just part of essentially their sick leave benefit that they have. So that I'm not shocked that the controllers are using it. I am a little surprised that it's being reported as if people just threw in their badge and left the job to go to work for some retailer somewhere.
Right. I mean, and it would be, I would imagine, a quite traumatic experience. I mean, especially considering, just recently, a few months ago, we have seen fatal collisions. So, this is really serious stuff here.
Absolutely.
So we know, Philip, that the Transportation Secretary is vowing to fix things, promising this complete overhaul. I'd like to listen to some of what he has had to say.
If we don't build a brand new system, there's going to be failures and people will lose their lives. There's Band-Aid fixes that have happened over the course of 20 years. You can't have a Band-Aid fix. It doesn't get done. It has to be brand new. The technology, it looks like it's out of a 1980s movie. Old computers, floppy disks. We're using copper wires, not fiber.
All right, so Philip, copper wires, floppy disks. When was the last time you saw one of those? How long do you think it will take to see real positive change?
I think it will take as long as it takes for them to actually allocate the money, because the National Airspace System has been kind of a victim of its own success. A lot of these things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks about the air traffic control shortages, the system things, they go back clear into Reagan. Reagan was the start of the big air traffic control shortage when the PATCO air traffic controllers went on strike in '81, I believe, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. So as soon as Congress can appropriate the right amount of money to get this going, is when we'll start seeing actual material change. But there's going to be a complication to this, because they keep talking about we're going to make this whole new system, but they have to figure out how to replace the existing system also. So it's not we just shut off everything in the Eastern Seaboard and then take the next 6 years to rebuild a new system. They have to have an implementation plan that's going to make sense, and they're going to have to do it in a way that addresses the biggest risk areas first. And those biggest risk areas are going to be some things like this telecommunication infrastructure that failed at the Philadelphia TRACON. Any of those places where there's a single point of failure, those are going to have to be addressed first.
All right, and doing the rollout while also keeping things running smoothly. I just want to ask you really quickly, at least one airline official warned flyers to stay away from Newark. What is your advice? Are we safe to fly? Would you avoid Newark?
Well, this is touching on one of those things I mentioned, I think, a few weeks ago when we talked, that I said that when we start seeing airport delays, we start seeing delays in the National Airspace System that are directly related to maintenance deficiencies, which this seems that it could be connected. That's when I would be a little bit cautious. Now, this isn't system-wide cautious, but if the airlines are recommending not flying into places, if the airline is canceling flights, now they have business economic reasons not to absorb those delays because those delays cost them money. But if the airlines are not flying into Newark, I would probably find someplace other than Newark. Fortunately, in the greater New York area where this airport lives, there are many airports to choose from.
Yeah.
So,
yes, certainly
and I think that's part of why it's getting, I think, a little bit of profiles there. It is pretty safe to say, don't fly into Newark when you also have all the other JFK and the other airports, but nobody's saying don't fly into Dallas because where else are you going to fly into North Texas? That's your airport pretty much.
All right. Well, we will see what happens moving forward. Aviation expert Philip Mann, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up.